Hey everyone, this is alexusadays, and Playwright recently had a new update. So we have version 1.59, and the update is doing a couple of things. It's doing more focused recording, like the major parts of the update. So more of a focused video recording. And also it has a lot of things to improve the work of agents. Especially using CLI. So let's go quickly through the release notes, read about what it's doing, understand it a little bit better. So one of the main features is screencast. Right now we have page.screencast API that provides a unified interface for capturing page content with screencast recording, action annotation, visual overlays, real-time frame capture, agentic video receipts. So we have a little demo here of what is going on. So fills out the to-do list, and you can see different highlights pop up during the process of what's going on. So this is a screencast recording, so you don't have to do a full video recording. You can actually now start somewhere in the test a screencast that will initiate when you do screencast.start, and you provide the password, the video is going to be saved. And then the test will execute within the scope of the screencast start up to the screencast stop. And then within the screencast itself, you can start adding annotations, and you can do it by .show actions, and you have different positions where you want the annotation to display, such as in the top right, top left, bottom right, duration for how long the annotation will be displayed, the size of the font, and so on. So you can have a pretty cool video recording of the steps for a particular part of the test where you have a screencast and annotation on what's going on. And you can have visual overlays also. So you can add chapter titles and custom HTML overlays on top of the page for richer narration. So here's a screencast and then show chapter, and it tells you what it's doing. So it's adding to-dos. There's a description, there's a duration, how long it's going to show, and specific style and the color. You have real-time frame capture, so you can stream JPEG encoded frames for custom processing like thumbnails, live previews, AI vision, and more. So you can say screencast start and then on frame data sent vision model data, the size of that, resolution of that JPEG encoded frames being sent. There's also agentic video receipts. Coding agents can provide video evidence of their work. After completing a task, an agent can record a walkthrough video with rich annotations for human review. So an agent can run the screencast from point A to point B with steps and highlights in the video showing what exactly it was doing. All right, so the second part is interoperability. So new browser-defined API makes a launch browser available for Playwright CLI and Playwright MCP and other clients to connect to. You can bind a browser, start a browser and bind it so others can connect. So you can start a browser and let agents through the CLI or through the MCP to connect to that started browser. So you can attach a session, and or you can point your MCP, so endpoint, my session, and can connect from a Playwright client, use API to connect to the browser. Multiple clients at the same time are supported, and you can even pass host and port options to bind over WebSocket instead of a named pipe. Then you can do browser unbind to stop accepting new connections. So it provides observability where you run Playwright CLI show, and then you can open the dashboard that lists all the bound browsers, their statuses, and allows interacting with them. You can see what your agent is doing on the background browsers. Click into the sessions for manual interventions, open DevTools to inspect pages from the background browser. So you can see there are 4 workers running here, and you can see inside what is going on. So Playwright CLI binds all of its browsers automatically. You can see what your agents are doing, and you can pass playwright_dashboard equals 1 in the variable to see all Playwright test browsers in the dashboard. Pretty cool. Then there's also CLI debugger for agents. So coding agents can now run npx playwright test --debug equals CLI to attach and debug tests over Playwright CLI, perfect for automatically fixing tests in agentic workflows. So before you could have opened through MCP or looked into the session manually and run in debug mode, see the UI pop up and kind of step through it. But now you can do it through the agents, or agents can do it themselves through the CLI, and the CLI will display the issues, like what went wrong. So for example, it was expecting Playwright CLI session, step over, and it navigate to the link. It says it navigated, and grab the title, and has an expect to have title on this particular line. So kind of puts out in the CLI console what's going on through the debug workflow. CLI trace analysis for agents. So coding agents can run npx playwright trace to expose Playwright trace and understand failing or flaky tests from the command line. So essentially, this report that you would, let's say, open in HTML and see what was failing, the same thing now will be available, the trace that will be available to the CLI agents. This will help agents to run tests, to debug them. If something fails, analyze the failure in the CLI by using agents themselves and the Playwright agents themselves. So pretty cool. So now, for example, if you were using some other AI to run your tests, could be Copilot or Claude or something else, it would probably do some sort of a bash and then get the log, analyze the log, and try to fix the test. Now this whole debugging process can be done directly by Playwright CLI agent. Pretty awesome. Now there are await using. So many APIs now return async disposables, enable the await using syntax for automatic cleanup. So when there's a test running, it will automatically clean up once the API is done. So the route and init script have been removed at this point. So when this is done running, it will just clean up and remove everything. Some other updates. So snapshots and locators. Method page area snapshot to capture the area snapshot of the page, equivalent of body area snapshot. So for like accessibility testing, you have now a method also to normalize your locators. You have a method to page pick locator, so enters an interactive mode where hovering over elements highlights them and shows the corresponding locator. There's some new APIs, so page screencast, storage console and errors, method browse context set storage, clears existing cookies, local storage, and IndexedDB for all origins, and sets a new storage state. No need to create a new context, so you can just wipe the sets, the storage all over. Page clear console messages and clear page errors to clear stored messages and errors. You can filter console messages and page or errors, and then there's a timestamp method for console message. Okay, so some miscellaneous. Browser context debugger provides programmatic control over the Playwright debugger. Method browser context is closed. Method request existing response, return the response without waiting. Method response HTTP version returns the HTTP version used by the response. CDP session on event and CDP session on close for CDP sessions. Option live in tracing start for real-time trace updates. Pretty cool. Option artifacts there in browser type launch to configure the artifact directory. Some other improvements. So UI mode has an option to only show tests affected by source changes. UI mode and trace viewer have improved action filtering. HTML reporter shows the list of runs from the same worker. HTML reporter allows filtering test steps for quick search. So you can now search for the steps of the test. New trace mode, retain on failure and retries. Records a trace for each test run and retains all traces when attempt fails. Great for comparing a passing trace with a failing one from a flaky test. So you have a multiple retries running, one retry, two retry, three. So test failed 3 times on number 4 it passes. It's going to have traces for all of those attempts so you can compare them. Some break-in changes. So the macOS 14 support for WebKit was removed, and they recommend upgrading macOS version or keeping an older Playwright version. And they removed the experimental CT Svelte package. That's an old package, experimental package that allowed you to load modules and test them when you like render a page. You could load it, parts of like components of React and test those. So it seems like this has been removed. I don't know if a lot of people are using this, but anyway, it's no longer going to be supported with the update. So Chromium versions update, Mozilla updated, WebKit updated, and then the version also been tested against older versions of Chrome and Edge. So that are the updates. If you did not start using Playwright CLI, go and check it out. There's a GitHub repo in Microsoft Playwright CLI, and there's a README on installation, and then you can use Playwright CLI with skills. One of the advantages of using CLI versus Playwright MCP, so MCP would act as if user would go into the UI and loading the page. So there's a lot of tokens consumed, so a lot of context. Playwright CLI use a lot less tokens, so it is very tokens efficient. And then to get started with the CLI, you will have to install it. Globally, there's a help command to help you with installation, the commands and everything. And then you can also install the skills. So Cloud Code, GitHub Copilot, and others will pick up the skills installed by Playwright CLI. Yeah, that is it. So yeah, give it a try. Install, if you want to try it out, install Playwright CLI. Install the version 1.59 of Playwright, and try giving the task to go through the agent that uses CLI and do some test creation, debugging, test runs. I think it's going to be pretty cool.